Head of the University of the West Indies Open Campus in Dominica, Dr. Francis Sevre, has indicated that society and adults should take blame for the issues currently affecting young people in the country. Sevre was delivering remarks at the Northeast Comprehensive School's graduation ceremony on Thursday. He says many in the Dominican society are idolizing and romanticizing criminals.
They observe day after day, policemen and policewomen struggling to keep their families afloat, experiencing the disappointment of seeing criminals going free, not being able to build decent houses and buy roadworthy vehicles, while drug men laugh at and mock them at the court, and criminals walk away from the court with their lawyers amidst cheers from families, friends and supporters. Indeed, it appears that many in our society are now romanticizing or idealizing criminals. Graduates, what are they, the adults, teaching you in terms of attitude? Boys and girls are told that we need Christian, decent and honest people in Parliament and other important institutions, both in the private and public sectors, so that our country may grow and develop in the long run. However, they see politicians and others who are more interested in power than service, who are more captivated by the short-term benefits for a few rather than the long-term benefits for the majority, who are preoccupied with accumulating wealth rather than distributing wealth legitimately and equitably through legitimate economic development. What is the consequence of this for youth attitude?
Sevre says the justice system and bad parenting should also be blamed for the attitude of young people in Dominica.
Boys and girls are told that the courts will dispense justice and fairness, and once one has done what is right and follows due process or the rule of law, justice will prevail. Instead, they see that justice and fairness are figments of the imagination and have little to do with what is right or wrong, but depend overwhelmingly on who has money to hire the best lawyers and win in the courts. They also see magistrates being told that their punishments are too harsh, while the victims of crime are offered no comparable comfort or consolation, even when they have suffered the murder of their children. What is the consequence of this for youth attitudes? Our young men and women are told to follow the examples of their parents, because parents generally want what is good for them and would by and large set good and moral examples. And I think that is by and large. However, many of our boys and girls see their own parents. Many of our boys and girls on a daily basis see their own parents being more concerned with identifying with one political party or another rather than concentrating on being Christians, good Christians. They see their parents idolizing politicians in a cultish fashion rather than professing faith in God the Almighty. They see their parents receiving handouts and defending politicians rather than leading their families along the path of righteousness and faith in God.
Head of the University of the West Indies Open Campus in Dominica, Dr. Francis Sevre. A local farmer says the rising cost of fertilizer is a major concern for Dominican farmers. Edison James is calling on the government to subsidize fertilizer for farmers, which he says is greatly needed. According to Mr. James, the Dominica Banana Producers Limited, DBPL, is unable to assist farmers with subsidies for fertilizers due to the constraints that they are now being faced with. James is calling on government to pay what is due to the Dominican farmers.
Farmers need to be assisted right now farmers are out on their own substantially. And particularly, we've heard about subsidy for fertilizers. Some months ago, when I called on the minister and the ministry to assist the farmers by providing some kind of subsidy of the fertilizer, bearing in mind that there was an extremely sharp rise in the price, the minister had all sorts of things to say about me. But yet they went on to say that they were going to subsidize. And what we have is a situation in which the banana organizations are now in a serious situation based on the fact that they had gone on and given farmers fertilizers at subsidized prices and are now owed substantial amounts by the government, which has not honored its commitment with respect to the promise to subsidize farmers. And we are in danger now, the farmers are, of having to pay again the high price for fertilizer because the organizations, being owed as much as they're owed by the government, will not be able to honor any commitment to subsidize, to sell the fertilizer at subsidized prices. So it's urgent for the minister and the government to honor their commitments and pay up the money to the organizations, whether it's Fair Trade or DBPL or whoever.
Local farmer Edison James. The Ministry of Agriculture is taking steps to intensify a program on the giant African snail which has been spotted in the north of the island. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, Samuel Carrett, says a series of events have been put in place to educate the public on ways to control and manage the spread of the giant African snail.
There will be on Thursday a series of events through the media as well as at the community level that will speak to the issue of the control, the management of the giant African snail in Dominica. As you know, the globalization and trade liberalization has ushered in a number of invasive species that is affecting now a number of countries throughout the region and globally as well. And so we have one that we're attempting to deal with very seriously. We have more, but there's this one we're focusing on it this week. And on Thursday we will have a series of events to ensure that we provide an update to the community, that we engage them in an empowering process that will allow them to provide their efforts in controlling the spread of the snails, and also to ensure that we are fully aware of the possibilities of those species coming into our shores on a national basis.
Carrett says the presence of the giant African snail on the island is of major concern.
Well, it has to a certain extent, because don't forget it started with just one or two snails, and and we've been investing quite a bit of money to try to control it. And although there is a thought in the literature that says some of these invasive species, they have their disadvantages, but there are some people who argue and they may have their advantages. So, but however, we think that it would be detrimental to allow it to spread, especially with the impact it can have on our forests, not just our agriculture, which is primary, but also our forests as well. If the invasion of our forests is a major concern.
Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, Samuel Carrett. Meantime, Agriculture Minister Matthew Walter says insurance coverage for Dominican farmers is long overdue. Walter was addressing a press conference this week on the return of a 4-day regional agricultural insurance symposium in Antigua earlier this month. He says the decision is better late than never.
I told him at the symposium that it is long overdue. It is long overdue, but better late than never. You see, this is exactly what I told them. Better late than never. And, insurance for the agricultural sector is urgent. And what I would say, it is indispensable. Okay, and this is why the